In the billion-dollar echo chamber of Pacific Northwest venture capital, Jasper Thorne was known as the man who always won. At 32, his sprawling glass fortress, jutting out over the treacherous Pacific coastline, was a monument to his obsessive control. He was the most meticulous, calculating, and ruthless figure in the game. But on a stormy night in 2017, the master of control lost everything. He walked out of his perfect life and into a digital void, leaving behind only an empty glass of scotch, an armed security system, and a perfectly locked, abandoned car at a famous suicide spot. Tonight, we investigate the cold case of the man too smart to disappear and explore the 3 terrifying theories that explain what truly happened at the Vanishing Point. The night of November 21st, 2017, was, by all accounts, brutal. A heavy coastal storm whipped the headlands, driving rain against the immense glass walls of Jasper's home. His assistant, who was also his distant cousin, was the last person to speak to him. The call was mundane. Jasper confirmed a dinner reservation for the following evening and confirmed the final transfer of a very large sum of cash into a trust account. A trust account, we should note, that was registered under a generic, almost cartoonishly bland corporate name. The conversation ended at 9:45 p.m. The following morning, Jasper missed his scheduled 10 o'clock meeting with a major potential client. A breach of professional conduct so extreme it immediately triggered a physical check on his residence. The house was immaculate. The lights were off. A half-full glass of expensive single malt scotch sat on the countertop. Crucially, Jasper's laptop was closed, and his security system, which was notoriously complex, was active and intact. Nothing was taken, and nothing was disturbed. It was as if the inhabitant had simply evaporated mid-thought. The one piece of evidence that defined the investigation was the location of his vehicle. Jasper Thorne's black, high-end electric sports car was found abandoned at a remote, public-access parking lot roughly 7 miles north of his home, overlooking the highest and most treacherous cliffs of the coast. The car was locked, pristine, and the keys were not inside. A full tank of charge, no evidence of struggle, just a luxury car waiting patiently for a driver who would never return. The initial investigation was intense, fueled by the local media's fascination with a wealthy tech figure. Coast Guard searches found nothing but heavy waves and debris. The local sheriff's office poured resources into tracing the last pings of his phone, only to find the phone itself had been permanently powered down immediately following the 9:45 p.m. call. Everything pointed to a planned departure, yet the abandonment of his car at a famous suicide spot confused the narrative entirely. Did he stage his death to become a ghost? Or did the isolation and the storm lead to a genuine, tragic accident? Without a body, the case was forced into the realm of speculation, and the 3 dominant theories emerged. The first, and for many who knew Jasper, the most plausible theory, posits that he was never a victim. He was an architect of his own freedom. This theory suggests that Jasper Thorne, a man who understood data, surveillance, and digital anonymity better than anyone in the region, saw his entire existence, his fame, his wealth, his responsibility, as a form of gilded cage. He didn't disappear from a crisis. He disappeared into a new life, having successfully engineered the perfect voluntary absence. The supporting evidence for this theory is entirely centered on financial and digital movements. For 6 months prior to his disappearance, Jasper Thorne systematically liquidated his most volatile and traceable assets, converting them into untraceable, large-cap cryptocurrencies. Analysts later estimated that he converted over $15 million into digital assets, which were then transferred through a series of complex, offshore mixers, making their final destination untraceable. This wasn't panic. It was a methodical financial extraction. Furthermore, investigators discovered that 2 months before the vanishing, Jasper had purchased 3 new, burner satellite phones using cash from an airport kiosk over 100 miles away. These phones were never activated in his known network area, suggesting a planned communication method for a world where cell towers and Wi-Fi networks were irrelevant. The funds he transferred into that generic corporate trust account, the one mentioned in his final phone call, were later proven to be the final payment for a high-end, professionally forged identity package, including passports, driver's licenses, and clean documentation for a new, fictitious persona named Arthur Finch. Proponents of this theory believe the car placed near the treacherous cliffs was a deliberate misdirection, a theatrical flourish designed to trigger an assumption of accidental death or suicide, thereby guaranteeing the police would stop looking within the critical first 72 hours. Jasper used the storm's intensity to provide a natural cover for any sound or movement that might have occurred near his home. He simply walked away, perhaps met a prearranged boat or private aircraft far down the coast, and is now living a life of total anonymity, bankrolled by his digital assets, in a jurisdiction with zero extradition risk. This theory aligns perfectly with the known personality of Jasper Thorne, the risk-taker, the controller, the man who believed he could outsmart any system, including the system of his own identity. For those who believe in the architected escape, Jasper Thorne is not dead, but merely retired, watching the world search for his ghost while he enjoys the ultimate payout of his final, perfect bet. The second theory offers a much darker, but sadly more commonplace, explanation. That Jasper Thorne was the victim of a tragic misstep driven by impulse, alcohol, and the treacherous geography of the Pacific coast. This theory dismisses the digital preparation as mere coincidence, or perhaps the actions of a man suffering from severe depression who was preparing to settle his affairs before taking his own life. The primary evidence supporting the misstep theory is the location of his abandoned vehicle. The remote parking lot near the sheer cliffs was well known locally as the Vanishing Point, a bleak, dramatic spot often associated with late-night contemplation and, occasionally, suicide. The fact that Jasper drove 7 miles to this specific location, shut down his phone, and locked his car suggests a final, decisive action that transcended his usual digital control. Witness accounts from the local area, though vague, supported the weather conditions. The storm that night was fierce, with gale force winds and heavy rain, creating dangerous conditions near the cliff edges. It is known that Jasper, despite his digital life, often sought solace in the raw, primal energy of the ocean. He was known to walk the cliffs late at night, a habit that bordered on reckless. The most compelling, though still insufficient, piece of physical evidence was discovered 6 weeks after his disappearance. A local beachcomber found a single, thick woolen glove snagged on a piece of driftwood 20 miles down the coast from where the car was found. DNA analysis matched the glove to Jasper Thorne. While a single glove is not conclusive proof of death, its location, battered by the ocean and miles from the car, suggests a struggle against the elements or a fall from the cliff face. Investigators theorize that Jasper, perhaps emotionally compromised or heavily intoxicated by the single malt scotch, went to the cliffs to confront his inner turmoil. In the gale, he may have slipped on the wet rock, falling into the churning Pacific below. The high tide, the intensity of the storm, and the sheer force of the coastal current would have immediately pulled the body away from the immediate search area, guaranteeing that the ocean would never give him back. For the advocates of the call of the sea, Jasper Thorne's vanishing wasn't a complex mystery, but a cruel and ironic end for a man who always sought to control nature, only to be swallowed by its immense, indifferent power. The precision of his digital cleanup simply became the final, confusing layer in a profound tragedy. The third theory plunges into the dark underbelly of the high-stakes world Jasper Thorne inhabited, the world of venture capital, ruthless ambition, and the enemies he inevitably created. This theory claims that Jasper was not a runaway or a victim of nature, but the target of a premeditated, highly professional homicide. Jasper Thorne was famous for his cutthroat business practices. He specialized in aggressive, hostile takeovers, forcing out founders and leveraging debt to consolidate power. He left a trail of disgruntled, financially ruined former partners and competitors. This provided investigators with an endless list of potential suspects, all with motive and means. The key to this theory lies in an unsettling anomaly that occurred 1 week before his disappearance. A major tech founder whom Jasper had recently bankrupted filed a police report after receiving an anonymous, chilling threat. "The debt collector is coming for you next, Thorne." The threat was later traced to a disposable email account in Eastern Europe, but the message itself was highly specific, referencing business dealings only known to a small inner circle. Furthermore, the clean nature of the crime scene is itself evidence of planning. If Jasper left voluntarily, why was his security system armed? If he had an accident, why were the keys missing? Homicide theorists argue that a professional hit team, leveraging Jasper's routine and isolation, could have easily breached his fortress, killed him inside, and used his own keys to stage the car at the cliff face. The purpose of the staging was simple: to make the police assume Theory 2, accident/suicide, and close the case quickly. The cash liquidation and the new identity documents, Arthur Finch, are then reinterpreted. They were not for Jasper, but for his killer. The theory posits that the perpetrator, or a high-level partner, needed the clean getaway money and forced Jasper to complete the financial transfers before his death. The last call to his assistant, confirming the trust transfer, was a coded sign that the final demand had been met. His laptop was closed not by him, but by a professional who didn't want to leave behind fingerprints or digital residue. For believers in the score-settling theory, the disappearance of Jasper Thorne is a dark fable about the true cost of unchecked ambition. It suggests that on that stormy night, his complex financial empire finally imploded, and the debt he owed to his enemies was settled in the most final, brutal way possible. His life wasn't ended by the sea or a new identity. It was ended by the very same ruthless logic he applied to his business dealings. 5 years later, the silence surrounding the disappearance of Jasper Thorne is deafening. We are left with 3 distinct, compelling possibilities, each rooted in a different aspect of his intense life. Was he the architected escape, living out his final, profitable fantasy under the Caribbean sun? Was he the victim of a tragic misstep, swallowed by the cold indifference of a sea he admired? Or was he the target of a calculated score settling, betrayed and eliminated by the very enemies he created in his pursuit of absolute power? The police file may be cold, but the questions remain searingly hot. The vanishing point is still out there, waiting for the truth to finally surface. Which theory do you believe truly explains the fate of Jasper Thorne? Let us know in the comments below. This was Trace Crime Files. Subscribe for more stories where truth is stranger than fiction, and justice is never as simple as it seems.